Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. One of the absolutely incredible growth trends going on today in the auto business is that of Cruise, the autonomous driving company. Cruise spent about a decade testing its vehicles in the San Francisco area, but now it's expanding extremely rapidly across the US. Keeps announcing new cities all the time. It announced another one today as I'm recording. So I wanted to cover exactly what the announcement was and what to look for in the future. My name is Travis Hoyam. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And if you like this video, check out my newsletter called Asymmetric Investing. Got a link to that in the show notes, and I'll give you a little preview of that here. This is the tweet that I was talking about earlier. Cruise announced that they're going to be entering Atlanta later this year. This is the 7th city that Cruise has added in about the last 3 months. A year ago, the company was only operating in San Francisco. Now we're in Dallas, Houston, Austin, Phoenix, Nashville's coming, Atlanta, and Miami. I don't know if I missed one in there, but a lot of cities being added. We also got an idea in the most recent conference call from General Motors what this business model is going to look like. What they're going to do is basically a land and expand strategy. So they're going to land in a city, start operating in a relatively small area, and then Cruise operates under a geofence. So there's a limited space where they can actually drive these vehicles, but they learn that space and then can expand it over time. This is exactly what happened in San Francisco, and now it's starting to be replicated across the country. So now in 8 cities, operating in a relatively small area in most of them, but that area will slowly begin to expand. And we're obviously seeing that the number of cities is expanding extremely quickly. On the most recent call, CEO of Cruise, Kyle Voigt, talked about the capacity for Cruise vehicles in these cities to blanket a city. And he basically said that cities can have over 1,000, maybe a couple of thousand Cruise vehicles. There are about 240 operating in the San Francisco Bay Area at this point. But to blanket the city 24 hours a day, these vehicles can operate 20 hours a day. You're talking about a couple thousand vehicles. Think about this as an autonomous Uber with no driver. So what is the potential for this business? Well, I put some numbers to that. And this was a projection that I did a few months ago before we started to see the kind of expansion that we've seen recently from Cruise. And the variables I have here are the number of cities where it's operating. At that point, it was operating in 3. So I said maybe it will be 100, 250, 1,000 in 2033. So 10 years from now. We didn't know how many cities were going to be. We didn't know how many vehicles were going to be in each city. I think now it's probably over 1,000. We didn't know how many rides they're going to be doing per day, how much the revenue per ride was going to be. So these are some estimates and some ranges. But you can see if we go through this high-end model that I put together, just some simple numbers, you can see that running in 1,000 cities, 1,000 vehicles, doing 30 rides per day, so a little over 1 per hour, and generating $18 in revenue. Remember, Uber is about $25 in revenue per ride and a margin of 30%. You're talking about a business with $200 billion in annual revenue and an operating profit of $60 billion. That is more operating profit than General Motors' entire market cap today. General Motors owns about 80% of Cruise. So if this is a successful business and it continues scaling, it could be the most valuable asset that General Motors has. This is what I think is currently getting lost for a lot of investors, is that this is an insanely valuable asset and it's getting almost no value in the stock price. One of the reasons I'm excited about General Motors' future is the company is effectively disrupting itself. Cruise has been kept as a separate entity. It gets help from General Motors in the form of financing, in the form of manufacturing partners, but it's building out this technology in the ride-sharing fleet, the autonomous ride-sharing fleet by itself. If you think about how quickly Uber went from being just black cars that were available typically in downtown areas to where it was available almost everywhere across the country and even around the world, it took less than a decade to do that. Cruise is now trying to do the same thing, and all they really need to do is build more vehicles and get more data from each of these cities, expand those geofences, and we're going to basically be able to take an autonomous vehicle around any city in the US. That's the potential for Cruise a decade from now. Going from 1 city to 8 may not sound that impressive, but the fact that it's gone from 1 to 8 in just a handful of months, I think is incredibly quick and shows exactly how quickly the company is going to expand operations. This is a business I don't think you should overlook. Has incredible growth potential, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. GM itself said that they expect Cruise to generate 50 billion in 2030. The numbers I showed earlier were for 2033. So I don't think $200 billion in revenue in 2033 is really that out of the question. I just keep being impressed by how quickly Cruise is expanding. We will learn more in the future about how available these rides are when the Cruise Origin vehicle gets launched. But I think this is a business that investors should really keep an eye on because you're getting a value in GM, price to earnings multiple in the mid single digits, and you're getting incredible growth potential with Cruise. That's why it's one of my favorite stocks today. But what do you think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.